Musk, and he will tell you the truth. Nachi free.
But man's inhumanity to man lives on in Donald Trump and Paul Ryan and in every other so-called human being who fought to repeal the Affordable Health Care Act. Be heartbroken, be terrified, be angry, but mostly be calmly vengeful. Quietly, persistently, permanently vengeful. To Trump and Ryan and every so-called man and woman who voted for this medieval act, this barbarism, we know your names. We will destroy your careers. We will make you suffer.
I know, Scully, that's a terrible impression of Keith Olbermann, but I think it still captures the essence of his blowhard pomposity. Ugh, I can't stand that pretentious cunt. You see, men can be cunts too, you know. I know, it's not nice to insult people, but Keith does it all the time. And while two wrongs don't make a right, in this case I'm willing to make an exception. And the reason why I can't stand this smug, condescending, effete little bitch is because he thinks he's doing the working middle class a favor. You really want to do us a favor, Keith? If you and the rest of your progressive, hypocritical ilk that work in the mainstream media as a bunch of overpaid, glorified corporate shills and the divisive, partisan career politicians you speak for, if you really want to do the middle class a favor, instead of pushing for universal single-payer healthcare, which will increase all of our tax rates and the cost of living, how about pushing for more responsible government spending? Why is that never on the table with you progressive, economically misguided shitheads? Why is it always about raising taxes as opposed to responsible government spending? Of course, the answer is simple. Raising taxes means more money to slosh around and stuff the pockets of you despicable, duplicitous assholes. No, Scully, I'm sorry, but I need to get this off my chest because when it comes to healthcare, the bald-faced hypocrisy of the Democratic Party is making me fucking sick. And by the way, I'm not a Republican. Oh, hells no. And I sure as shit didn't vote for this asshole either. I almost voted for this bitch, but instead I voted for the only person talking about truly affordable healthcare, Gary Johnson. He may not have known where Aleppo was, but he sure had some good ideas when it came to solving our needlessly overpriced healthcare industry. And that's because he's one of the few candidates to talk about something you sanctimonious hypocrites on the left never want to address: self-responsibility, especially when it comes to healthcare. Look, I know we're all in this together because we're pattern-seeking mammals who happen to be social creatures, but there is a shitload of people that are abusing the system at every turn, especially when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid. The waste, fraud, and abuse that goes on within those two programs is criminal, literally. The double billing of services, the fraudulent billing of non-services. It's something that none of you moralizing, self-righteous fucks on the left side of the political divide ever want to address. And speaking of morality, I don't see why I should be footing the healthcare bills of the morbidly obese or chronic smokers or any other slew of self-induced problems that comprise the majority of healthcare issues. Speak to anyone who actually works in the healthcare industry. Speak to ambulance drivers, nurses, doctors, and ask them how many people end up in the hospital, let alone the emergency ward, for problems they could have avoided in the first place. Especially when it comes to unwanted pregnancies, particularly teenage pregnancies. But of course, for every unwanted pregnancy, there's a welfare check waiting to be doled out. And for every welfare check, there's a vote waiting to be won in the next election cycle. When are you going to start addressing that? Because I'll tell you, when it comes to universal single payer, I'm an agnostic. Actually, I'm an atheist and anti-theist, but let me not get sidetracked. In other words, when it comes to paying for healthcare, I'm an agnostic because I'm open to whatever actually works that won't artificially increase my cost of living and bankrupt our country any more than it already is. However, I'm glad the Affordable Care Act is in the process of being repealed. At the very least, I'm glad the individual mandate is something I may not have to worry about anymore. Because you see, I am working class. I may not have worked in a coal mine, but I don't earn anywhere near as much money as you do, Keith. Which is why I don't feel the need to virtue signal that I care about the poor. Not that I don't care about poor people either. I donate and volunteer time whenever I get the chance. And I even brag about it like I just did. Much like you do when you get on your soapbox and telegraph to the world that you're a paragon of morality by pretending to care for the working class. But since I'm part of that class, I feel the pinch. And a couple of weeks ago when I shopped around for health insurance, I quickly found that there were not many options and I would have to be paying close to $600 a month, and that's just for my wife and I. See that sound? Those are the fucking assholes that drive around my neighborhood. And that's why I'm glad I don't have to worry about the individual mandate under Obamacare, which I'm willing to bet you feel the need to defend because you're more concerned about not being seen as a racist and losing your job at GQ than you are about solving the healthcare problem in this country. I am so glad that bullshit program is finally being repealed, because even Obama himself argued against an individual mandate back in the 2008 Democratic primaries when it was down to him and his frenemy Hillary.
And I think I should have the opportunity to respond very briefly, and I'll try to make it as quick as possible.
Very briefly, absolutely.
Number one, understand that when Senator Clinton says a mandate, it's not a mandate on government to provide health insurance, it's a mandate on individuals to purchase it. And Senator Clinton is right. We have to find out what works. Now, Massachusetts has a mandate right now. They have exempted 20% of the uninsured because they've concluded that that 20% can't afford it. In some cases, there are people who are paying fines and still can't afford it, so now they're worse off than they were. They don't have health insurance and they're paying a fine. And in order for you to force people to get health insurance, you've got to have a very harsh, stiff penalty. And Senator Clinton has said that we will go after their wages. Now, this is a substantive difference. But understand that both of us seek to get universal health care. I have a substantive difference with Senator Clinton on how to get there.
But of course, then Obama became president and caved into the special interests of the health insurance lobby led by Karen Ignani. And that's the real problem with healthcare in this country. The lack of competition among healthcare providers and the misinformation being pushed by the Keith Olbermanns and the Huffington Post and the Michael Moores and the Jimmy Dores and his despicable brand of aggressive progressives that arguably led to the deaths of 3 police officers in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but let me not get sidetracked. It's thanks to that toxic message of victimhood and entitlement that pushes for more government control and less private options. If you're going to blame anything on private insurance companies, it's the fact that they're giving capitalism a bad name. They're colluding with the government in order to make sure people don't have many options when it comes to paying clearly overpriced premiums and guaranteeing themselves a pool of customers that have nowhere to go for their medical insurance, even out of state. They're basically manipulating the law of supply and demand. No, Scully, I'm not an economist either. But I am one of the millions of Americans that is negatively affected by this political game that refuses to give more people options on how to deal with their own health care. And the solution isn't that difficult. You don't have to be a goddamn expert. And I get the feeling it's not universal/single payer either. The solution is a more transparent and free market competition among healthcare providers and insurers, and cracking down on almost all the medical waste, fraud, and abuse going on in both the public and private sectors of the healthcare industry. And ultimately, informing people of more options and the need for self-responsibility, not worrying about opinion polls and who's going to win the next election. Fuck all you people who are responsible for making healthcare so criminally expensive and out of reach. You know who you are, and in due time, with more videos, I'll make it a point to make sure more people know who you are too. I'm going to expose all you motherfuckers on the left and the right, the Democrats and the Republicans, even if it lands me in an emergency ward. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe by clicking on my face, and if you want to support this channel, click on the Patreon logo or donate via paypal.me/homegrown.